So let's have a look now at the energy business. So first off, read this disclaimer carefully. Let's look at the MLP ETF. It is now that the data is updated, it is 3.57% away from the where it was yesterday. And you also see here that oil and gas is down 7.6%. So there's a pretty big move now in the market. Let's actually now look at. I think we will look at the MLP. There's something a bit more interesting happening there than the others. So here is Alarian MLP ETF. So the key thing at the moment is this key line in the sand. So let me draw it in. It's currently respected, but it's risky business. This blue 100-week moving average, it's been such a big deal, and you can see that it was resistance back here. So there is tremendous amount of history pertaining to that indicator. So while we are crashing today, we are not breaking it. That's interesting. Obviously, we don't know how the day will close, but if this holds, then it could be an interesting, initially, a bit of a short-term opportunity, potentially. A longer horizon. Let's look here at the daily data points. So when you go here to the dailies, we do see key support level, support back here, support. So there is a horizontal level that's also in play today. If we go and look at the other indicators, RSI is at an interesting level. During this sell-off, the current RSI level formed a temporary low, and you got a bounce back here as well, and also back here. However, when we go to the 2019-2020 period, you do see that this ETF can definitively explore far lower levels on RSI. So that's something to take into account. If we were to lose the blue 100 week, then there could be much further to go. Here on the dailies, we are at the key tradable support level on RSI. So all in all, technically speaking, this is interesting from a bullish perspective. So let me write in my notes. We are at 100 WMA support. Given what we also saw here with RSI and horizontal support level, I will give a 7 here to the bulls, but that is of course completely contingent on this level holding. A break of 100-week moving average and also the horizontal support on the dailies would be pretty bad, because we saw that we can go much lower on weekly RSI. When we look here at the seasonality, to the left, it's interesting. Usually we see strength into later April. Looking at the table view, so we are currently in March. So 5% loss so far for March, which is the third worst March going back here to 2011. 2020, however, tells us that things can get much worse if there is panic. April, however, looking at the sum, it is the strongest month, which is rather interesting. It certainly plays into the idea that there could be a tradable bullish opportunity. So given the data on seasonality in the current context where we already have seen weakness for March, I will give the bulls some points here. So I will give them a 5. This is pretty interesting. So let's compare the Alarian MLP ETF with the global energy ETF. When we go here to performance, year to date, AMLP is outperforming IXC. Looking at beta, it is higher. Price earnings is lower. Yield is much bigger, 7.6% yield versus 4.85%. So a lot of yield here. So even if this wasn't to bounce and maybe go a bit, just shuffle a bit sideways, then at least you do get the yield. 17 holdings versus 53. And here you can see a further breakdown. So given the geopolitical context around energy, even if we do see a major breakdown in the energy, well, no, not energy, but in the banking system now, we still will use energy, and there is, due to the boycotts of the big bear, there is a major demand for energy. So yeah, I don't think that everything will literally shut down. So yes, from a fundamental perspective, there is some value here. I will give 4 here to the bulls. So yeah, let's look at relative performance. We have 68% positive with S&P 500, 94% positive with the global energy ETF, so definitively very strong correlation, and 92% with the energy ETF XLE. Short-term correlations is at 40% with the S&P 500, 69% with IXC, and 64% with XLE. So what happens with the IXC is definitively going to have an effect on the AMLP. Yeah, so here is the global energy ETF. Definitively moves in major cycles. Duration of cycles differs, but yeah, there's something interesting here. But it's not as clean as what we got with the AMLP. In this case, given the sell-off today, we are definitively oversold. Big sell-off, hence the probability of some mean reversion. It's there on this ETF as well. IXC slash, no, let's do AMLP slash IXC. IXC. You can see here that there is a change. If we draw a trend line, well, if we do it like this is obviously more bearish. If we look at the more recent developments here, it seems to be going more sideways. Could be that there's a period of AMLP outperforming global energy on the horizon. Looking at daily data points, a bit of a breakout here. So outperformance, that's interesting. You could also make the case that this looks a bit like a bit of a rounding-ish bottom. Okay, a bit messy drawing. Problem is that RSI is approaching a territory that we rarely go above. Now looking at seasonality, usually some outperformance into early April. March is one of the weakest months. However, April and May and also June, frankly, looking at the sums, these are months where AMLP has a tendency to outperform IXC. So given that, on relative performance, I will give a 5 here for AMLP. So we are at 100 weekly moving average support. 5.3 points here in favor of the bulls, so the data is bullish. However, the support must hold. Now let's look at whether there are some leveraged MLP products. You do have this one. It's 1.5 times bullish leveraged. It was MLPR, PR. Yeah, let's look at the price. Yeah, it is tradable. So that's one way to get more of a leveraged exposure. Doesn't look. Let's look at the 5 minutes. Oh, it's not that liquid. Of course, if you were to trade the XOP, then there are leveraged ETFs there. Okay, so we have some time left. Let's look at some of the primary markets because yeah, so here's the S&P 500 on the dailies. It seems to be a bit of a reversion happening here. Yeah, there's some strength there in the 5-minute charts. Nothing like epic, but there's been panic. Now the market is digesting the data. Seasonality for the S&P 500. March is it's an okay month. April is well, no, it's not. It's the third strongest month when you look at the sum, seasonally speaking. Hence, if we were to see a bit of a breakdown in the market, at least the seasonality sort of is a bit of a hedge. Seasonality alone is not sufficient to, of course, stop a major sell off. But the reason why April, generally speaking, is very bullish, and you can see here in the table view, it's rare for April to be bearish. Even when we look here at 2008 and 2007, April was a bullish month. So that could reduce the risk of full panic. So that's interesting. It does reinforce the bullish take on AMLP there, because there was a positive correlation. Okay, now let's look at some of the energy products. You have natural gas. I saw some rally, now going back again, but we are at support here as well. The seasonality for April is especially bullish. May is more bearish, but March, the current month, it's noisy. Rather messy month. But here again, you get into this thing about April. So we are currently in the middle of March. A very bullish month is right around the corner. Could that mean that this sell-off will be viewed as an opportunity for those who look at April? You know, the more intermediate time frame investor. So yeah, interesting stuff. Let's look at crude oil. Oh, this is interesting. 200 weekly moving average support here for crude oil. Does not mean that it will hold into the close, but if we as we approach the closing hours, if this level holds, then it's a very interesting level for longer term investors, because of the energy situation. There's a major deficit due to the boycott of the bear, so we will need energy. Even if the entire financial system breaks down, we will require energy. Looking here at the table view. So the data here for April is massive because of the 376% loss but 2020 was a mess. So ignore that. But looking at whether it's green or red, April is an interesting month for crude oil. It's certainly more bullish than bearish, but it's a bit mixed. Okay, let's just look at solar energy while we are at it. Yeah, a bit of a noisy chart here. Just a lot of things going on at the moment. Some kind of horizontal-ish support here, but definitively a chart with noise. Seasonality, oh, that's quite bullish to the left here in the line view. When you look here at the table view, April can be bullish. It can also be very bearish. There's been some really bad Aprils, looking at 2012 and also 2022. 2021 was no great month either, so a lot of volatility here. Uranium, also a big topic. Uranium, if you are a longer term investor, uranium is interesting. I'm not a huge fan though of us losing support here and here. Of course, we don't know where this week will close. Let's look here at the table view. Yeah, a lot of red here though for March and also for April and May. So yeah. And also the line view here to the left doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. So let's sum up then. We have looked at AMLP. There are also some other energy ETFs that you could have a bit of a look at that are also more tradable, like getting in the XOP. Some of the leveraged oil and gas ETFs are definitively a way to have a shorter term bet on a bounce. AMLP was, however, more interesting, I think, due to the multitude of factors. So you have technicals, seasonality, fundamentals, and relative performance, that where the stars are aligning. And also the AMLP, it will attract a different type of investor. So there could also, because of that, be less susceptible to panic because it's more esoteric. So yeah, that's also a bit of a hedge, as well as that the type of investors that the product attract is going to, of course, affect the behavior of said product. Whatever you do, of course, you do want to let the trend be your friend and have stops in place and to be diversified.